Hello there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Adam.
This is Chris.
And this is Tim.
And we're going to give our hot takes on the game we just finished playing, Rap Godz.
Before we jump into a description of the game, I wanted to call out that we've had a few recent reviews on Apple Podcasts. I want to give a little shout out to the listeners that have been leaving us nice comments and reviews there. It's awesome because it helps other people find the show and also reminds us that people are listening and you guys are having fun and enjoying what we're putting out here. So the review I'm going to mention this week was actually put out about a month ago, but the user's name was Amigdga on Apple Podcasts. And his review said, "Love board games? Need some insight on what you should keep on your shelf? Well, you'll want to make sure this podcast is on your nerd must-haves while you're daydreaming about blood rage victories, scheming size strategies, whatever tickles your tabletop fancies. These guys talk about it all. Easy listening, entertaining, and will keep you up to date on all the latest, greatest board games have to offer." Thanks, Amidga. That was really nice of you to say. I appreciate it.
And I love those games that he just name dropped.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't think we've ever actually reviewed Scythe, which feels like an oversight with our group, considering how much we've played it in the past. So
we're always talking about it. You guys are always talking about and referring back to it and comparing games, so we should probably
review it at some point and let people actually hear it. Anyway, yeah, thanks. And if any of you listen to us through Apple Podcasts, we love it. Drop us a review or a rating on there. It's really helpful. And again, sometimes just hearing that people are listening and you guys are, liking what we're putting out, it's great. It's a good reminder, and maybe we'll keep doing it then. All right, well, let's move into a description of Rap Godz.
In Rap Godz, you play an up-and-coming rapper looking to make it big, represent your city, and rise to the pinnacle of hip-hop stardom. To do this, you'll play cards that tell the story of your rise to fame, either by drawing and playing a card that gives you rap resources and hit albums, or trade in 3 of your regular cards for the pricey but hard-hitting come-ups. You'll progress on the street, skills, and bling tracks that will allow you to play more and more powerful cards. And when you're feeling ready to scrap, you'll beef with your rival rappers, rolling to see who's going to be the top dog. After completing 3 albums, at 5 tracks or rounds per album, you'll score your hit records, personal goals, and city goals to see who comes out as the ruler of the Rap Godz. Rap Godz was designed by Omari Akil with art by Hamu Dennis and is published by Board Game Brothers Games.
All right, welcome back. So let's jump into the conversation about Rap Godz. Chris, you picked this game tonight, so I want to start with you. Gameplay and mechanisms. What stood out to you tonight? Anything particular you want to start with?
So this is a fun game, and it was relatively simple, but it was not simplistic. Normally the person who chooses the game, and tonight that was me, has to learn the game and get it set up and be ready to teach it to those who haven't played it before. And I was scrambling at the last minute to try to get that done. And even with only 10 or so minutes to learn the game, I was ready and able to do that with a little bit of help from Tim when we actually got to it. So I appreciated that it actually had a relatively simple rule set, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. One of the things that I thought was interesting was the resources in this game. There are 3 resources. There's skills, there's bling, and there's street. And those resources are not things that you spend in order to get stuff. They're prerequisites that let you play the cards that you're drawing, because each turn you're drawing a card, you're playing a card, and for some of them you need to have a certain level of one of those resources in order to play it. And so that was something that I actually kind of liked. I liked the idea of being able to use the resources in a way that didn't actually deplete them. What did you guys think about that?
I really liked it because in this game, you're just kind of doing it and doing it and doing it round because the game board is a turntable. So you're just wrapping around this vinyl album, collecting these resources. And like you said, Chris, it feels good because you're not depleting. You don't have to collect resources to trade resources in to do this, to do that. So sometimes I get a little antsy when I'm having to I just got 4 resources now. I don't quite have enough resources to do the thing I want to do. And this game presents it in a little bit of a different way so that it's just prereqs. You're like, all right, well, how do I get to this marker so I can play this card? You are kind of managing your resources here, but in a little bit of a different way. Tim, any thoughts on that one?
One of the cool things about it is that this is played over 3 let's say rounds, but it's, 3 different records here. And each of those, you start drawing from a new card pile, which means that the prerequisites get higher and higher. So in the first round, a prerequisite for bling might be 3, but in the last round, the prerequisite might be 18 or something like that. So it's important that you don't spend it, because you have to be able to build up for some of those things, and you have to be working to know that you're going to be able to do all the biggest actions in the final round, or everything that you draw anyway. You need to be working up all those tracks. Like, I really ignored one of the tracks, and it hurt me. I mean, it didn't hurt me bad enough to lose the game, but it hurt me. It hurt me in the last round that I had like a handful of cards that had bling prerequisites, and I couldn't buy any of them. So I was kind of just drawing blindly off the top of the deck just to grab anything I could play. So that was pretty interesting. Also, those resources can count towards endgame conditions, like some of the personal goals, or some of the shared objectives were having the most street, or other things. And so it's a cool way to treat those as well. So it is kind of a resource, but it's not like a traditional resource. And yeah, I liked it. That was pretty cool. Adam, anything else that stood out to you from a mechanism?
Well, you really have to have a proper marketing plan so you can gobble up the dough in this game. The basic mechanism is draw a card, play a card. But if you don't want to do that, you can discard 3 cards to grab like a super card over from the right-hand side of the turntable. So I thought that was nice, kind of managing your cards. And if you wanted to try to go for this bigger, more explosive card at the expense of throwing away some lesser cards. So that's one other mechanism. Chris, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, well, actually, you kind of jumped in on the same thing that I was going to, and that was on those, they call it the come-ups cards. And they were a lot of fun because they, like you said, they were super cards. And one thing that threw me off at the beginning was, if you got 5 cards in your hand and you got to spend 3 of them to get a come-ups card, then, I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, then how do I get my cards back? This is after I spent my 3 cards. And the answer is you don't. You end up playing without those cards for the rest of the album. And then once you get to the next album, then you draw the cards associated with that album, and they end up being bigger cards. But you really do have to make a choice and pick the smart cards if you want a super card, and don't just get something that looks pretty at first. You really got to think through that.
One other thing, though, is that you do draw up to 5 cards on the next round, and the next album's cards are going to be a little bit more powerful. They might have higher prerequisites, but if you didn't get one of those comeuppance cards in the first round, then you're going to not draw as many cards going into the second round, right? Because you already have 5 cards going in. You're just going to draw 1 or 0 cards going into the second album. On the other hand, it gives you more you can discard from one of the comeuppance cards in the second round. But getting rid of some of those cards wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was an interesting choice, though, for sure. One of my personal endgame goals said I couldn't have any yellow cards, and it seemed like I was just drawing yellow cards. So it was actually a great use for me to just dump those cards I didn't want to play.
It's a nice mechanic. It's a little bit of timing there, so you can kind of when the end of the round's coming. If you want to dump your cards to be able to gather more powerful cards coming up from the next round, from the next album, then that's a good time to dump your cards and be ready to draw more of those more powerful cards. So I like that very, very much.
I want to say that you mentioned that basically the root of this card is you're going to draw a card and you're going to discard a card. It's just about the simplest mechanisms you could imagine. And I was looking back at previous games that we've played and discussed on the podcast, and the lowest weighted game that we've ever played was Herbaceous at 1.19 according to the BGG user weight. This game is weighted at a 2, so it's a little bit higher than that, but beyond that, it's quite a bit lower than most of the other cards we played. Now, when I read the rules and saw that the game was essentially draw a card and then play the card that you think you want to play, I thought this is going to be so dull. There's not going to be anything here. But it didn't really work out that way. I actually quite enjoyed it, and the reason why I think it worked is because there are so many goals to look for in this game. Your personal objective requires you to meet something, whether it's having a certain level of resource or be the highest on a track. Then there's 3 different shared city goals. Well, in a 3-player game, it's more in a larger game. So there's 3 shared goals, and there's these other goals around the board. The resources, once you get to certain places on the resource tracks, you get little bonus tiles. So there was actually a lot of important decisions to make every time that you were actually playing the card, as far as racing other people up those resource tracks and making sure that you were staying ahead of them for the goals and trying to meet some of the the goals that could trigger in the middle of the game. I felt like every turn I was paying attention. I had a couple choices and I had to make a smart choice and not forget that if I played a yellow card, it was going to blow my entire personal goal and I could never hit that. There was a little bit more to the decision than I expected after reading the rulebook, and I appreciate that. I was glad. I was glad to see there was a little bit, more to the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did not pay as much attention to those goals as you did, and probably as Adam did because I came in last. And it really hurt me. I mean, I was kind of focusing on basically just getting plaques, which is the basic scoring mechanism of the game, and I ignored the goals, and it killed me because there most of the scoring in this game, I think, actually has to do with those goals. You got individual goals, you got city goals, you got the goals that come out, for various cards. That really does add some variability. So you really do have to think each game. So what are the combos here that are going to work together, and which ones are not going to work together, and which cards can I draw, which cards can I not, or which cards can I play, and which cards can I not? And it really is dramatic.
Yeah, the scoring here was a lot of the cards that you played offered some combination of plaques or just points when you played them, and then usually another resource, either dollar bills or skill or street cred. That was cool. I like that how, you kind of sacrifice. Do I want to go for more points right now, or do I want to go for more of these resources that'll climb me up the turntable and potentially allow me to play more stronger cards in the future? So the scoring here was like seemingly simple, but not. There's a little more to it when you dig a little deeper.
Just coming out of the first game and understanding how the three different albums progress, like there is some strategy to pursue here. Points in the first round, if you play a card and you get points for it, you're going to get one or two plaques, right? Like one or two, three plaques maybe. You may be wanting to focus more on the resources on those early cards and ignoring the plaque scoring, because you can move up those tracks and work towards some of the end games. But on the third album, you play a card and it's going to be 7, 8, 9 plaques, which is as much as one of the end game scoring cards. So I could see, like learning this game a little bit and saying, hey, I really need to focus on resources early. I mean, that's not unusual with the resource management game. Those little ones build up, they help you a little bit over the game, but getting those resource tracks up early is obviously a much more important goal. So let's talk about the big mechanism in the room here, because I have a beef with it. And that,
Oh
no,
man,
that's the
there's
beef.
so much bad humor going on in this episode. This is great.
The beef mechanism, right? And the beef mechanism is that some of the cards, the red cards, when you play them, instead of just getting the points and resources that are listed on it, instead you're going to start a beef with another player. So you're going to target another player, and you guys are going to roll some die, and whoever rolls the highest die number is going to take the resources from the other and plaques from the other player. So I really liked this mechanism, actually. I liked the way that this played out in this game. Did you guys, before I jump into my thoughts on it, what do you think? Chris?
Yeah.
Probably dinged you the most, as much as you were the biggest jerk in the game about it. But
Yeah, hey man, don't hate the play, hate the game. I loved it. I thought that was great. And we always talk about player interaction, and this was like the center of player interaction in this game. And it's like you directly target somebody. It's a battle. And the cool thing, one thing I actually really liked was that it's a very casual kind of battle. So basically what you do is the person who brings the beef rolls 2 dice, and the person who is defending rolls 1 die, and whoever has the highest die wins. And so it's a really simple mechanism, but it has a pretty significant change in scoring associated with that. I think in the last round, I was way ahead on street, which was one of the big things in the game. There was a big bonus for whoever had the most street, and I lost a beef, and it took me down pretty significantly. I think I ended up going from first in street to last in street, and that was because of the beef. So you can really take down somebody who's ahead by using that mechanism. What did you think, Adam?
really quick, I'll let Adam jump in, but it's really interesting though, because it is a risky mechanism. And tonight in our game, everybody who started a beef won. But think about if you don't, because you're giving up any resources you would get for the card you were going to play, plus the person who you lost to would take those resources away from you. So it's actually, I don't know how smart it was for us to even play those beef cards at the end, and except for maybe in an act of desperation. And it ended up working out, but it's a pretty risky choice.
It was a big risk. I really like the beef here because it does add that interaction. You can pick on somebody, but it's not too harmful. I mean, the person you picked on is gonna have a chance to get back at you in subsequent albums or whatever down the road. They're going to make their track, they're going to lay down their tracks and they're going to diss you on their albums, and they're going to start, they're going to beef back with you. So it's like thematic and awesome. So the beef was fantastic. I loved it. And you're right, it was super risky. I thought I'd go after Chris on that last round to try to get that street cred, and it worked out. I had a little hedge from early in their game climbing up. So that's another little mechanism. You're climbing, you're going around the record, and as you hit various milestones, I think it's like 10, 20, 30 points.
10, 20, 30. Yeah.
You collect these little markers, a little bit of race element, little markers that'll give you a little bonus for later in the game. And the one I had early on was +2 on a beef roll. So I just dropped that knowledge to Chris. I was like, "Hey, Chris, watch out. Don't start a beef with me. I got a little +2 hedge." So then Chris and Tim started a little rap battle with each other. And I was kind of just out of it doing my own thing, which was pretty freaking hilarious.
Yeah. No, and like I did not want to use the beef later in the game because I needed to get to 30 street in order to get my personal goal, which was like 25 plaques, which was pretty much going to win me the game or lose me the game if I didn't get it. And I couldn't draw a card that gave me street, and I finally drew a card that was a beef card for 5 street, which means that if I won it, I would get over that 30 point. It would also take Chris down and potentially take away his end game bonus. But if I lost it, I would have no choice, because even if I drew another card, there's no way I was going to get them on a street I wanted. So it was kind of like a Hail Mary, and it worked out for me in that case.
If I'd have beefed you in that last round, would you have met your goal still? If you'd have lost 5?
How much did he lose? Because I think I was at 35 and I needed 30. Did you? How much did you?
I think it was
away
for
from
5.
him?
So I think you're.
Yeah, I probably would have been okay still.
5.
But yeah. Well, you should pay more attention anyway.
I should pay more attention.
So I started out thinking I was a tough guy because I won like my first 2 beefs, and then I lost a bunch of them, and man, it killed me. That burned me. I'm still upset about that.
One other funny thing though too, Adam, is that because you did that last beef, that means that all 3 of us were at 3 beef cubes at the end of the game, so nobody got the bonus for it. I guess it wouldn't have mattered if you did that one because we both would have been at 3. But anyway, we all managed to win 3, so it was like it mattered. If one of us had been at 3 and the other people were at 2, and somebody just let him have it, that would have been another 10 point.
Yeah, it's another in-game scoring bonus, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because that beef thing was a direct interaction, but there was actually a lot of interaction here. I felt like the whole game, it was just there were so many shared goals that you were going for, that you were either racing for, you were racing on the tracks for the bonuses, you were racing for some of the goals that could trigger in the middle of the game, and you're racing for the city goals at the end game, that it was just like constant, like what's Chris doing, what's Adam doing. For the weight of game it is a bit of it's a mean game, it's an aggressive game, but kind of exciting too. It is not a super friendly like, hey, we'll just play and do
one person's mean is another person's fun, good time.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is probably one of the highest player interaction games that we've ever played. And I'm talking about, including things like Cthulhu Wars, Blood Rage. It was constant in this game for all those reasons that you guys just said, because every scoring mechanism in the game, almost everyone, other than just the straight plaques, is all based on the first or the most or whatever. So you're fighting for every point that you get there.
Yeah, I would not like rank this quite as high as Blood Rage or Inish or Cthulhu Wars. Those are so focused on interaction. But you're right, it's high interaction compared to a lot of other stuff that we play, for sure.
I think the interaction is at a great level for the type of game it is. It's not like your fellas, your people on a map, your frogs on a map level interaction, but it's up there. It's super high, and it's great. I don't know. It's just fun. You just get a nice fun feeling from the interaction here. I liked it.
Well, let's jump into the production and theme. I don't usually call that out, but I think it's important to say that we're going to chat about the theme here. We usually do anyway. Adam, why don't you start? What stood out to you from a production perspective here?
Yeah, I'll say this game's got class and style, street knowledge by the pound, never acts wild, and it's low key on the profile. The theme here was outstanding. Every single card, you look at it and it's hilarious. It has some little animation. The flavor text is just witty, and it's quick, it's sharp and poignant. It was incredible. The card little depictions and flavor text is fantastic. I don't want to steal all the little elements. I think Chris is probably going to talk about the art tons and tons. What do you think about the art, or what do you think about the flavor? What do you think about the production here, Chris, and the theme?
Let me just say really quickly on top of Adam talking about the flavor text, every single time Adam drew a card, he chuckled. He laughed out
I
loud.
did.
And I don't think I've ever had that happen in a board game experience before. So that was fun. It actually made it really enjoyable for me. I was so focused on the mechanisms that every time I picked up a card, I was just looking at the numbers in the top left. And then Adam's over there chuckling away, like having a great time reading the flavor text and the names on the cards. So that was fun.
It was so good. Like that's for me, that's all part of the game. Is just having a great time and chuckling at the cards, like seeing just the humor that's embedded here is it makes the experience so much more enjoyable for me.
I gotta say that I think this game probably has one of the best senses of humor that I've seen in a game in a long time. And there's some ones we played that have a lot of humor in them, like Clank in Space is a great one. This one I thought was just hilarious. I was in the same boat as Adam. Every time I drew a card, I would read the first thing I would read is the text, and they were all hilarious. They all played on hip hop
Tropes. Yeah.
stereotypes and tropes, and it was absolutely hilarious. I just loved reading all those cards. In terms of the art, I thought the art was what really made this game in terms of production because we were playing the Tabletopia mod, and it looks like the tokens and whatnot are just little cubes. So really, what you're looking at is the cards, and you're looking at the board. The board is super cool. It's in the shape of a record, and you're going around in this kind of it's almost like a track. It's a record that looks like a track, and it has the three resources on it. That's a really cool way to present that. And the art was amazing. I mean, I'm thinking about growing up back in the '80s with the super old school, or at least the suburban white boy version of old school hip hop, and the art was kind of had a street art cartoon looking way about it that just it just brought me back. I mean, it was so fun to look at, and again, the art, like the text, was witty, and I just loved looking at every card. I loved looking at all the components on this game, and I thought that really helped bring a lot of theme to it and a lot of fun to the game. What do you think, Tim?
So I'm probably the squarest, least interesting white dude that you will ever meet.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I don't have. Yep, thanks, Adam.
Uh-huh.
I don't have much to say. I mean, the art is obviously very intentional, and it looks like street art. It looks like graffiti art. I think it fits really well here. I think it's great. I don't have any, personal link to it. It's just, I don't have anything to reference back to. I love the board. I think the board looking like a turntable, with the record in the middle and the what do you call the little track?
The crossfaders.
The crossfaders, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the rounds and the turns were kind of tracked with those things in the game was great. Where the goals are, they look like knobs. Like just the board looked awesome, and it was super functional. I didn't know what to expect coming into this game being a rap artist. Like I didn't know how that was going to translate into mechanisms. And in in a lot of ways it didn't necessarily at all. All of the translation came through in the flavor text and the art and stuff like that. Like there's not really a mechanical link to creating rap music or becoming a rap musician, but they did such a good job of putting it in everything, like the movement around the track being a record player and the layout of the board. And, I think they did an awesome job of taking this theme and putting mechanisms to it and making it into a game. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say there. I think it worked really well.
Here's a couple examples of the cards. One of the first ones I got in the game was called Tech on the Dresser. It shows, I guess it's a Tech 9. I don't know. It's a gun. And it's sitting on the dresser, automatic weapon. And then the flavor text for that is, it's fake, but we won't tweet that. That gives you a bunch of street cred. So hopefully you don't get found out and lose all your street cred. Another one of the ones is jump probation. And the flavor text is, warrant schwarrant, I got things to do. So that's some of the examples of the cards. They're just hilarious. They're just fantastic writing.
There's one thing that bugged me a little bit here, guys. And I know that it's... I don't know. I'm so divorced here from the theme, but I'm not a fan of guns. I just like casually putting guns as a part of pop culture. I know that that's here, it exists. I didn't appreciate having them throughout the art, throughout the cards. Maybe that was important to the designer and the artists and the creators. I know it plays on stereotypes that are here. I could have done without it personally. So again, that may just be my squareness coming through, but as somebody who's like raising a daughter who I don't want to be introduced to I don't know. You know what, that's a tangent. I don't need to go off on that, but it bugged me a little bit. Maybe that's just me, but it bugged me a little bit.
You know what, Tim? I the one of the first cards I got was that automatic weapon, the Tech 9,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Flavor text was that it was fake, but so that was kind of the only one I noticed. But I'm going back through some of the cards here more, and there is a few more that have a bunch of guns here and there, so I could see that being a very off-putting for some players.
Yeah, I saw several in there, and again, I know that there's like a stereotyping and a cultural link here maybe, but it bugs me. I don't think it's something that needs to be a mainstay in any media as glorifying it as like making it a positive thing, I guess.
I want to ask that too, as someone who has no finger on the cultural bead of anything, are some of these cards like a bit stereotyping? Like, I don't know, I got the sense that maybe some of them were, but is that part of the humor? Like, I don't know, I feel like there's a fine line to be walked here, and I don't know how it's going to land with all audiences.
Well, I'll tell you that the way I interpret that is, and this kind of goes to your point as well, Tim, it's that it's parody. I mean, that there's parody, that there is a love of the subject matter built into this game, but at the same time, it's parodying it, and it's with things like the Tech 9 and some of the gun imagery in there. It was stuff that was intended to be very stereotypical and to look like it. So I feel like this is one where I totally get what you're saying, and in terms of like I don't my son doesn't play with gun toys and things like that, but you kind of take your subject matter as it exists, and that is how how the rap stereotypes exist. So I mean that's just it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. I mean, fair enough. Let's move on. I just felt like I had to say that it wasn't a major negative for me, and I'm not I'm not necessarily the target audience here, and I'm not necessarily someone to understand and translate this theme in the best way possible. But that was just my small take there on a negative.
Let me riff off that for a second, because I thought that was actually something that I found really kind of endearing about this game, is that I don't think you have to be a hip hop fan in order to enjoy this game. And I mean, I think that I kind of went into it going, oh, is this the kind of thing that's going to appeal to hip hop fans or not? And in the end, all the games that we play have some kind of theme to them, and some of them are things I'm interested in, and some of them are things I'm not. And honestly, a lot of the times I appreciate the way a theme is rolled into a game, not necessarily that I love that theme to begin with. And so I thought this is one where there was enough fun in the theming that I was able, even if you're not a big hip hop fan, a big rap fan, this is the kind of thing you could sit down and you could really enjoy without having a deep knowledge, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, Chris, because I did. Again, it's not an area that I have any expertise, but I had a great time playing it, and I felt the theme, and and it worked. So I agree with that.
I love the theme. There's some satire and some parody here, Chris. I think it works perfectly. I like the Yo MTV Raps era. That's what a lot of this was bringing back, and then following that through with hip hop, early '90s hip hop, Tribe Called Quest and P Rock and CL Smooth, and seeing all these cards and cassette tapes and CDs and gold chains and Flavor Flav type stuff. I love it all. It's just fun and whimsical, and it'd be interesting to talk to the designer and see what kind of thoughts and what kind of feedback he's gotten after releasing this game. It'd be very interesting to hear, actually. But I loved it. I loved it all.
All right, cool. Well, Omari, if you listen to this and you want to chat with us sometime, we'd love to have you on the show and pick your brain a little bit and hear about what else you're working on. All right. Anything else from a production perspective you guys want to mention?
Oh, did we mention, I want to say the turn, just the art on the board. I think someone touched on it, but it's all like the street art graffiti in the background. It's super busy, just colorful and vibrant. If you're from like LA or Long Beach driving around, you'll see lots of this artwork on the street. And then I like just how the vinyl record, instead of just a normal record outline, it's all cityscape. So very reminiscent of any kind of downtown area in the United States. It's just skyline cityscape going around the turntable. So it's cool. I think it's really cool.
Agreed. Cool. Well, let's move on to favorite moments or exciting moments of the game. Why don't I start with this one? I mentioned this a little bit already, but there were actually a lot of moments that felt like they had a big impact here, that were kind of pushing the needle back and forth. But it felt like the whole game I was chasing any of these rewards around the turntable, just about to get the one on the 10 point on the street cred. And then Adam jumps over and gets it. And then I was just about to get the one on the skills, and Chris jumps over and gets it. I didn't get a single one of those bonus tokens the whole game. It was like a constant me just, okay, I'm going to get this. And then somebody plays a card and beats me to it. So there was actually a lot of moments of just like, oh my God, I lost it again. Oh, I'm so frustrated. Oh, I'm never going to win this. I won. But, there was a lot of those just like tense and exciting moments. I never felt like upset about it. Like the game is a weight that I'm just there to have fun, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to try to play the game. But it definitely felt like sometimes I just had no control over, how things were going to go. That happened a lot, but it was still fun. It was fun to see people constantly getting moment when I didn't expect they were going to be able to pull that off. So.
Yeah, Tim, I don't know how you pulled it off because I thought I was going to win with more discipline than a Shaolin monk. But you just like kept, I guess you concentrated on your player bonus and you got tons of points from that, or how'd you do it?
I got 25 points just for my player bonus, so that was a big thing. I also know that I got to platinum before you guys did, and I think that was just from points on the cards. And that's probably why you guys were beating me up the tracks. You were probably hitting more resources on the cards you were playing, while I was hitting some points early on, which again may not have been the smartest move, but I definitely had a momentum on points. And I also got 2 of the end game, the city bonuses at the end. So
okay.
So yeah, I picked up a few points here and there. It must have been a lot of it from. I wasn't that far ahead of you though. What I beat by like 8 points or something like that, 9 points.
Is that I was in the 90s. I think you broke 100.
You were 99. I was like 108 or something like that. Close. So it was a pretty close game. Chris, what about you? Any moments that stood out to you?
Yeah, a couple. Well, first of all, every single beef stood out to me because they were they were fun and really impactful. And especially at the beginning, I felt great because I won a couple and I was loving it and I was thinking I was the king of battle. And sure enough, by the end of the game, you guys had all caught up with me and kicked my butt a few times in the later beefs, and so that that ended up going away. But they were all fun, they were all interesting, and they all made a big difference.
That first beef was hilarious actually too, because the way the beef works is that he started a beef with me, so I get to roll my 1 6-sided die, and he gets to roll 2 6-sided die. If you tie, you have to re-roll all the die if they're top dice from both sides ties. So I roll a 2, and I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna win this one. And Chris rolls a 1 and a 2, and then we had to re-roll. He got me on the re-roll, but the fact that you even like came close on 1 and a 2, that was a great start.
There was 2 re-rolls. I think you guys tied on the second re-roll too.
It was nuts. I mean,
and
and they were all fun. They were all good. The other one was in this game in particular, Street was a huge deal because that was where a couple of the bonuses landed. For me, it was a particularly big deal because I had to get over 35 Street to get my personal rapper bonus. And that was a big 15 points. So that's it's a relatively large amount in this game. And so we were obviously duking it out. And at the end of the game, it was the last round. I had an extra card. I was able to turn in 6 of my cards total for 2 of the come ups. And I thought I was just going to put on my Adidas and run into the lead on that, and I did. And sure enough, both of you guys came, and Tim and I beefed, and he won, and then Adam, I probably did something too, and again, I ended up in last. So it was just another example of that, the battling that happens throughout the game, and so those weren't necessarily good moments, but they were really memorable moments from the game to me.
Yeah, I think for me, moments that stood out was that final beef, Chris. It was the final play of the game. I thought I was going to take the victory because we ended up being a 10-point swap on the beef. I went up 5, you went down 5, and I got to take one of the in-game tokens, a 10-pointer. So that's like a 20-point swap there. And I might have like cheated earlier on for one of these diversity cards. So sorry about that, Chris. But it's still, once we tallied up all the points, Tim still had the edge. That was great. Both that last like beef battle was cool. And then just sniping all the rewards going around the turntable from Tim, like leapfrogging and be like, nope, thanks, I'll take this one. And nope, thanks, I'll take this one. That was just hilarious.
Hey, Adam, you were asking about scoring. So you had a personal goal on your rapper card had a personal goal too, right? Yeah. Wasn't it like 4 points per?
It was 4 points per green card.
How many green cards did you end up with?
I think I only played 2 green. I wasn't even like paying attention to that. I was just having so much fun. Like,
there you go.
So I got stuff from you.
I got 25 points for my personal goal on my rapper card. So that was.
I think
that's what cost you the game.
I got 8 points total for my my wrapper. But
Yeah, we didn't mention it in mechanisms, but it is kind of fun, the asymmetric start that everybody has, because you all choose one of two city cards, and that kind of tells you where your starting resources are, which can actually have a pretty significant difference, or have an impact, especially with some of the prerequisites. But then also, each wrapper is pretty different. They have different end game goals, or they might have different ability. Everybody has a different ability that triggers at different times or triggers once per album. I thought that was pretty cool. It definitely leads me to like, hey, the next time I play this, it's going to feel different because I've got different goals to go for, and I've got a different ability I can try to take advantage of. For a game of this weight, again, there's a lot of variability. I think it's going to feel like a different game the next time you played it.
Totally. And then going back to the guns topic, it was the famous poet and rap artist CL Smooth who said that we should lay down the guns and make sons we can teach. So that's one of my favorite lyrics by him.
Thanks, Adam. All right, let's move into the final question about Rap Godz. Would you request to play this game again? So, Chris, you requested it tonight. What are your thoughts coming into it after your first play?
Absolutely. I gotta say that this game, I think on first play, I probably had more fun with this game than I have had in a long time. And again, I'm saying on first play. The theme, the humor, the interaction, it just made it an absolute blast. The only caveats that I would give to that is one, it's a relatively, kind of low medium weight game. So it's the kind of thing where I don't know that I would pick it again for like a main, the main event for a game night, because it's just not really that weight. But absolutely, this is a game where I'm thinking about actually getting a copy of it. Hopefully, there's still some available after the Kickstarter. But it was super fun as like a starter game, or a game that to have between other games on a game day or something like that. So the weight aside, absolutely. And the other thing, I don't know yet because I've only played one game of it, but a big part of the charm of this game is the humor and the cards, and I don't know how big the decks are, and it's relatively simple. So at least in terms of the mechanisms, so I don't know how many replays it would stay fresh. And it may be that it's a bunch. Like I said, I've only played one game, but I would want to play a couple more and kind of see how it feels before I made kind of a judgment about the long-term playability of it. But absolutely, for the first game, for the first few games, I think it's an absolute blast, and I definitely have not gotten my fill of it yet.
So yeah, Chris, just to give some info about the game's availability, they're taking pre-orders for shipping in the fall of 2021. And that's over on Board Game Brothers website.
Nice.
Thanks, because I did try to find that out before the game tonight, and I couldn't find it.
Would I request to play this game again? Absolutely. I had so much fun playing this game. Every card draw, Tim, you're right. I was like reading the card, looking at the art, and it was just, the humor just hits me hard. This is my kind of humor in this game. So I agree with you, Chris. It's not like a main event one. It's like, hey, let's like hang out, play this hilarious game, kind of slap each other in the face a little bit, and just have some fun. Like, that's what this game feels like to me, and maybe reminisce about some of your favorite old hip-hop or recent hip-hop. But yeah, I love this game. Would totally play it again. Tim, what about you?
I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I had fun with this game. I read the rule book again. It felt way too simple for something that I want to play, and it's not the weighted game that I'm gonna be searching for all the time. But I think I had a lot more fun with this game for a game of this weight than I have of almost anything else of this weight. Oftentimes, when we talk about a game, and again, I'll go back to Herbaceous, which is a great example because the basic mechanism of that game is like draw a card or play a card. It's like it's kind of the same level of complexity, and that's a fun game. But this game had so much more going on, so much more to watch for. It almost felt like it was a very basic game with some really fun Euro underpinnings to it. Resource management, kind of racing tracks and watching for the end game scoring and goals. And all those things that I actually really love about more complex Euros exist in this fairly light game. So I really enjoyed it. I would actually really like to play it again. The question is where does it fit in? Because it's a little long for a like filler game. It's not something that we could finish in 30 minutes. It's like an hour, maybe an hour plus game. Kind of fits in that space of like competition for Ticket to Ride, or maybe even Trekking the World would be another good example of a game that's in a similar weight. So Would I request this over Trekking the World? Yeah, I think I actually would. I think I'd probably rather play this for something of the same weight and space over Trekking the World. There's a space for this game, I think, and that is introducing new players to board games to fill in a night, or when you have a little bit of a longer time slot, but not long enough to do a main event game. That's when I would pick this game, and I actually think I will request it again. I had a lot of fun with it. I would have loved to play a second game tonight.
A couple things. I think if we play this game enough, we'd probably get it to under an hour, I think, with 3 players. I think it's a reasonable assumption. And then do you guys see any comparisons here with this and, say, Red Rising? A little bit of managing your hand, draw a card, play a card. I know in Red Rising, you're kind of building your hand for the in-game scoring. But for me, I got like a bit of a similar feel. Draw a card, play a card, and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison because when we're talking about weight, they're probably, or length of play, they're probably pretty similar in length of play. Yeah, out of these two, I would probably usually pick Red Rising, but I don't know. Yeah, I think the thing with Red Rising is it's actually a weightier game. Like, even though it's just about as simple of a rules teach, it's a lot harder to make decisions in that game. Like, I think the decisions are a lot tougher. It's a lot more AP prone, a lot thinkier.
Agreed.
And I like that stuff about it, but I think it's less likely that you can teach that to somebody and get them into playing quickly. Newer player, even existing players, like we could get anybody into playing this in 5 minutes and start having a fun time with it. And Red Rising, you're going to wait 15 minutes for the first person to look at their hand for the first time and decide what they're going to start doing. So interesting comparison.
And to kind of, to further expound on that comparison, there's the 3 tracks that you're racing up: the Microphone's Money and Street Cred. And in Red Rising, you have the Institute, the Jupiter track, the Ore. Yeah. To me, I see a lot of comparisons here. And I think Rap Godz is probably way easier to get to the table. Like you were saying, Tim, you can get it started and get it running. The amount of text on each card is limited. You don't have to read any of the text. You could just look at the icons if you wanted to. Whereas Red Rising, you got to read all this stuff, figure out what the card actually does, take a few minutes to assess your hand of cards, and then get going.
Right. And in all honesty, you're probably right. And this is probably a more streamlined and better designed game. Like, this is probably, for most players, it's going to be smoother. It's, again, I like some of the complexity that Red Rising brings, but I think it's complicated to teach, and it's just hard to grok like what you're going for. This game has clear objectives and fun gameplay, so I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna show some love to the people back in Boston. Growing up in New England, there's an old saying that when you're the Boston Bruins, who would you rather have on defense, Bobby Orr or Ray Bourque? And the answer was, if you're down a point, Ray Bourque. If you're up a point, you want Bobby Orr. And so this is one where I'd say, if I'm playing with a new player, or if I'm just looking to have a fun time and just like sit down and kind of slap each other around for a little bit, Rap Godz, absolutely. If I was looking for something with more serious hardcore competition, if I wanted to think about the game, more hardcore of a thinky game, it'd be Red Rising. Although I will agree with Tim. I think that if in terms of just straight fun, I think I would pick Rap Godz over Red Rising, even though I enjoy both games.
I want to say one more thing before we move on. I'm going to go back to theme a little bit. The theme here is so much more appealing to me than, like, say, orcs and dragons and elves. And at least it's refreshing. It felt so nice to have some kind of different theme and have that apply to things I saw on TV growing up. So again, kudos to the designers here and the artists for making that happen and bringing it to life for me.
Yeah.
You guys have any comments on that?
100% agree, Adam. Totally outside of my world, my realm of experience. It's just not a theme that I've lived or been around. I just didn't grow up in this world, and yet I still really enjoyed that it was different, that it was refreshing, that it was unique, and didn't just fall into a lot of the same thematic area that most games do. So I agree 100%.
I'll applaud anybody who does something a little bit different. I mean, I've never been a Victorian gardener, but I like the idea of Tussie Mussy. I've never been a rapper, but I love the idea of Rap Godz. I love the idea that people can take pretty much anything these days and make a really interesting, fun game out of it. And I think that really is a good thing for the hobby.
Well, Chris, you're going to love when we play Obsession in a couple weeks then.
Except for that.
Such a contrast.
For that.
All right, let's move on. Guys, thank you. That was a great conversation about Rap Godz. We'll talk about some things we've been playing or that we're excited about right after this. All right, welcome back. So let's talk about some games that we've been playing or getting excited about this week. Let me just start really quickly that I got a chance to play some games with Adam this week, which was a surprise because me and my family ran back out to our old stomping grounds in Long Beach, California, which is close to where Adam lives this weekend, to go see some friends that we hadn't seen in a while, post-COVID, kind of getting a chance to get out and see some people. And Adam didn't think he was going to be available, but he kind of hit me up last minute. I'm sitting on the beach. And he says, "Hey, I got a little time this afternoon." So I ran over and we got 2 hours of gameplay, and it was awesome. The one game I wanted to call out, though, is a game I've never played before, Dice Throne. Adam's talked about it a little bit recently. My first play of it. First thoughts, it was more complex than I expected it to be. There's a lot to absorb with each character. Your player boards are huge with all kinds of different iconography and different abilities and end round abilities and stuff like that. So it was actually a little bit more interesting and more complex than I expected. Although I started to grasp it pretty quickly. There's a lot to explore there because there's so many characters. But playing through one game, we only played one game of it, I didn't feel like I had a lot of control over what happened. There was a few decisions to make to say, like, do I want to push and try to make another roll or just stick with where I am? There was some interesting card play, making decisions about when you spend those combat points or whatever for cards in your hand. But beyond that, I felt like the game kind of just ran me for the most part. So I'd like to play it somewhere. I'd like to try some other characters. I kind of regretted that I told you, let's play something else instead, and we didn't just try some other characters. So I'd like to play a little bit more, but I'm not sure if I kept feeling that way. I don't think I'd want to, go back to it too much more.
And I would generally agree with that sentiment, Tim. There's a little bit, the more you play, there's a little bit, you'll see like, oh, okay, maybe I should have done this first to give myself more opportunities later in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nothing, there's not too many of those tactical decisions right away. It's advanced Yahtzee is really what it is. And you can supplement the dice rolls with some cards.
Yeah.
And there's no deck building. There's a little bit of hand management. You can discard cards if you want to ditch some cards that don't really apply or don't help you out to gain some more combat points, which might help you later on. But I would agree with that sentiment, Tim. It's advanced Yahtzee. It's light, it's fun, it's quick, it's smash each other back and forth and see who wins.
The production blew me away even more than I expected. The artwork, the graphic design of the player boards and the iconography and the characters and the character cards. It was so fun. It was so cool. So I love that.
It's a great, beautiful dice chucking game. I really want to try it at 3 players or 4 players. You can do the 2v2 version, or the 3 players just kind of a free-for-all fighting each other. You're incentivized to attack the player with the most health remaining. So it would be fun to see how that works.
Yeah, cool. Right on. Chris, what about you? Have you gotten any plays in now that you've got your boxes unpacked?
Yeah, well, first of all, the boxes getting unpacked is a huge thing. We're finally into our new permanent house in Portland, and I got my boxes unpacked, and I got a room full of games. And I almost want to replicate that Indecent Proposal, that movie from like the 90s where it's got the picture of Demi Moore like rolling around naked in the bed of money. I want to be like rolling around naked in my bed full of board games, except nobody actually wants to see that. So I probably won't do that.
Put that on the Twitter channel so everybody can see that.
Yeah, Twitter's gonna blow up with people avoiding that post. Another thing that I've seen since being here is just the welcomingness of the Portland game community. Tim actually forwarded to me a listener who invited me to a game night, and I deeply appreciate that and fully intend to take advantage of it. And so that's been a lot of fun to see. Another thing is that my 9-year-old son, who has never had any interest in games, I don't know where this came from, but one day he says, "Dad, let's play a game of Doughnut Drive-Thru."
Nice.
Simple game. It's a card game, but it's a fun little, kind of starter hobby game. And we have played every night since, I don't know, like 3 or 4 nights in a row. We played a game of Doughnut Drive-Thru, and he's like become a fanatic for it. We even went out and like bought voodoo donuts to eat while we were playing our game of
Nice.
Doughnut Drive-Thru over the weekend.
Are there still long lines at Voodoo Donuts, or has that hype settled down a little bit?
It settled down a little bit, and we ordered ahead, so we're good.
Okay. Nice.
And so that's a lot of fun. And the last thing, one other thing to mention, and it's almost I don't know, can you like print a retraction in a podcast? But I almost feel like I want to take back. Take back is the wrong way to say it, but we talked about AuZtralia last time I was on the show, and I had a lot of stuff that was kind of mediocre to say about it. And ever since we played that game, it has been in my head, and it's like, the yellow sign snuck in and like took over my brain. and I am desperate to play that game again. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I'm actually still considering now. I think I'm down to the last few days where I can actually complete my pledge and really get the game in the new Kickstarter that's out for it. And but anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to make of that, but it has definitely wormed its way into my head, and I'm really interested to get that back on the table again.
So first of all, Chris, you'll have the opportunity to retract your statement in two ways. One is that we are starting to do some board game double takes where we're going to go back and replay a game. At some point, we may replay AuZtralia, and you'll have a chance to update your thoughts on it. But also, I've been telling you guys for a while, we need to do a topic called Wrong Hot Takes, which is where we basically talk through things that we've said in the past about board games, or even things we hadn't talked about, but we felt in the past about board games, and then our minds changed on them. So at some point, we'll do that topic, and that would be a good chance to revisit and say, I totally got that wrong.
Awesome.
Or maybe not. Maybe you'll play it again and you'll feel the same way. So.
Maybe you'll double down. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
All right, cool. Adam, anything going on for you?
Yeah, for me, a Portland connection, Chris. I was talking about my copy of Oath came in and I was not really feeling it. So some guy up in Portland reached out on the Board Game Geek marketplace and offered to snatch it up. And I sold that and shipped it right away. I got a little bit of profit. I got to get rid of a game that I probably wasn't going to use and love as much as this particular person was. And he's up in Portland. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Nice.
I do want to say AuZtralia is one it's so unique, right? It kind of sticks around because it's not like many other games that are out there. It's kind of this, you're kind of collaborative working together, but you're kind of not collaborative. And there's some funny situations that arise. It's a different game. It's very different. So it's hard to parse why it's...
Yeah, I definitely want to play it again. I've been thinking about it a lot since we played it as well. So I'm totally game for another play of that.
It's a little bit country. It's a little bit rock and roll.
The other game we got to play, Tim, partially was Terraforming Mars. 108th play that I've logged.
Wow.
It was fun. I love that game. We just played Prelude and on the Elysium map. We got pretty far into it, but then Tim had to cut it off a little bit short, but you were crushing me so hard. I think we'll give you the win on that one. But always fun to get a classic like Terraforming Mars to the table and real components and get it going.
Yeah, that was a total blast, man. I'm so glad that you were willing to jump into that with me. I apologize we ran out of time because I only had 90 minutes and I was hoping we'd be able to rush through and get it done, but we were probably one generation short, maybe two.
We're probably one generation away. We were screaming through it.
Yeah,
there, so.
That was a blast though, and it got me really excited. Again, I haven't received my pledge of the big box yet, but it's got me really excited to get that and hopefully find someone to play with around here. But that was really cool. There's one more thing I wanted to mention, guys. It's on Kickstarter right now. I assume it will still be by the time this podcast drops, but if not, maybe there'll be late pledges or something. There is a game by Tim Fowers called Paperback. I had for several years, played it many, many times, but it's basically a word building deck builder. So the idea being that you start with a hand of some very basic letters. On your turn, you're going to try to play out the biggest word you can. Just like a typical deck builder, the letters that you play out, aside from getting you potential points, they're also getting you the ability to buy other cards. And the cards you buy may be more interesting letters that have special abilities when you play them. It's a really fun, fairly lightweight deck builder. If you know people that like Scrabble, this is a much more interesting way to do kind of a word building game, in my opinion. Yeah, so Tim Fowers just released has on Kickstarter right now a game called Paperback Adventures. And Paperback Adventures is a solo-only version of his deck builder. And it is, the term that's used for these often is called a roguelike deck builder. Slay the Spire is a great example. So the idea of Slay the Spire is that it is a deck building game that you play on a computer platform, like I play on the iPad, and you're going against other monsters. This game starts out with the 10 basic cards. You play against a simple monster, but at the end of that, you get to buy another, you get to win a card from that monster. And so you're slowly building up your deck as you move up these multiple levels, playing against a bunch of minions and bosses and major battles and stuff like that. Paperback Adventures does the same thing, where you're building hands of words, but your words also have attack powers on them and defense. The letters do. And so depending on the word you can spell, you're going to be attacking and dealing with these monsters that you're fighting against, and that's going to allow you to get more cards. So it has basically been explained as Slay the Spire and Paperback combined in one. And oh my god, I'm so tempted to pick this game up. It looks like so much fun to me, and I probably will back it. But you basically have to pay for a starter box that's not too expensive, but you can't actually play with just the starter box. Then you have to buy a hero pack. and there's 3 hero packs available. But if you go all in and get all 3 hero packs, it's like $75. And I'm just not sure I want to pay $75 for a solo deck builder game. But if I get anywhere near the amount of hours out of it as I have Slay the Spire, it will be well worth its money. So very tempted to pick that one up. It looks like a lot of fun to me.
Think of it as an investment in yourself.
And Tim, there you go again, always talking about Kickstarters. Like, can you just leave it alone? Come on, that's all you're doing.
I know. But in all fairness, this is, like Paperback was an existing game. So it feels like this is not a completely new Kickstarter, right? This is... Oh God, I don't know what's wrong with me. I should just stop looking at this. But it ended yesterday actually. I just looked this up. So it ended already. If that sounds cool to you, go check it out. Maybe you can late back. Man, I missed it. Oh well, that's all right. It'll be in retail probably at some point. Okay, I've got something I'm not at all interested in, but I think this is an interesting fact that 1,051 backers so far have backed Path of Light and Shadow Solstice on Kickstarter. Sorry.
And you are one of those backers, or you're not one of those backers?
No, I meant to say 1,051 suckers have backed.
Oh, man.
So far.
That's harsh. That's harsh.
That's a hot take right there.
That's a cold take.
All right, guys. I think that'll wrap us up this week. If you enjoyed the conversation, you want to talk to us about any of the games we've been playing, feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're on Twitter at BG_Hot Takes. We're on Facebook at Board Game Hot Takes. And you can always go to BoardGameHotTakes.com and drop us a message there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Peace. Bye-bye.